Mercedes endured yet another difficult weekend as they went pointless in Melbourne, and it seems like the Silver Arrows are up for some massive changes in the following period. After Hamilton and Wolff's latest statements, the situation in the Brackley-based squad is very pressurised and it's about to explode. But if this turns out to be the reality, then who would be to blame for what happened for the third consecutive year? And more importantly, is there a light at the end of the tunnel for Mercedes? Now, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell went scoreless in Melbourne, and it seems like the team doesn't understand what's wrong with the W15, a scenario that happened for the third consecutive time under the new regulations. Be that as it may, Hamilton's comments were quite depressing, as he went on to say that once Prix got past him, he felt exactly the same as last year, which is a cheeky dig towards the engineers who worked tirelessly back in Brackley to bring the car in the right direction. However, the situation is very difficult to understand right now if you're a leader of Mercedes, and there are talks about a potential leadership change with Wolff potentially gone as the team principal. The natural feeling of looking for the guilt in the team principal when something goes wrong remains the same, and Toto Wolff himself raised concerns about a potential move away from the team. When elaborating on this matter even further, Wolff went on to say, "What we're going through is super tough. And I would be lying if I could say I feel positive about the situation and optimistic, but you just need to overcome the nagging negative thoughts and say we will turn this around. But today it feels very brutal. We've got to really dig deep. I'm interested in turning this team around as quickly as possible, and I'll happily give my input on what that would be or who could that be. I look at myself in the mirror every single day about everything I do. If I believe that I should ask the manager a question or the trainer a question, I think it's a fair question. It's now what I feel at the moment that I should do, but if you have any ideas about who could turn this around, I would happily listen to them." This is probably the most depressing state in which Mercedes found themselves, and with Wolff stepping aside, it would probably create much more problems than it would solve them in the first place. Regardless of the situation, the team is looking forward to the rest of the season and trying to turn things around, because as things stand, they're in a huge danger of losing even the fourth spot in the Constructors' Championship to Aston Martin, a team that's trailing them by just 1 point heading into the fourth race of the season, Suzuka. Now, the bad news doesn't end here for Mercedes. Suzuka is yet another track that is full of high-speed corners, which does seem to be their biggest flaw of the car. The team opted for more top-speed setup on the W15 in Melbourne, but sacrificed grip and high-speed corner performance for the sake of it, hoping that this track would prove to be pivotal when it comes to improvising with what they have in their hands. However, that turned out to be horribly wrong, and when talking about this matter, Wolff said that again the correlation from the simulator and what they're receiving from the on-track performance just doesn't make any sense, and that's the biggest problem they have right now. Practically, the team has no idea where they can improve because what they're testing in the simulator is not what they're seeing in the real-life W15, and adding to this matter furthermore, Wolff said, "We don't understand some of the behaviours of the car. What we see in the wind tunnel does not correlate to what we see out on the track. There were times in the race where we massively lacked pace, and then there were times when we were doing okay. On one side, I want to punch myself on the nose, but on the other side, you can see that if you get things right, you can turn it around. So you have to believe, but again, it's a very, very tough time." Well, this comes after Wolff's original comments about not being positive about anything revolving around Mercedes and their opportunity to turn things around. Not that they don't have the potential, it's just he simply doesn't have a positive view on things. After this weekend, Hamilton's comments were quite easy to understand. The car was on a knife edge and they were far away from competing with the best, which was their ultimate goal before the season started. Now, after the first two races, Ferrari and McLaren saw where they were standing with their launch spec cars, and they made some massive improvements, further showing that they do have the capacity to close the gap to Red Bull as they finish well above Prix, who, although having issues with his floor and generating downforce, was still too far away from the top 3 places. It surely doesn't help that Hamilton, the man who's been pursuing Mercedes to chase another design on their car for 2 years, and when the engineers decided that he was in the right, they also came to realise that the ship has sailed a long time ago and 2026 will be the first competitive season for them, is leaving for Ferrari in 2025. What this essentially means is that the farewell season of the 7-time world champion could be the worst one in his career, considering the fact that he's nowhere near Russell when it comes to performance, something he admitted on his own, and with him being kicked out of Q2 at P11, it doesn't help his case at all. Right now, he stands at 8 points only and ranks behind Stroll, who has 9, and is on the verge of being passed by Tsunoda, who has 6, and all of those were gained in the last race. Be that as it may, the 7-time world champion has complained about the worst start of the season, one he compared to 2009 and said it's even worse, further adding, "This is the worst start of a season I've ever had. It's worse than 2009. It's tough on the spirit for everyone in the team when so much work has been going on over the winter. You come in excited, driven and motivated, with the mindset that you're going to be fighting for wins. Then that's not the case, and you think, okay, maybe second or third, and that's not the case, and it cascades a bit further down, and you go through the motions. It's challenging, but I continue to be inspired by the people I've worked with and continue to put in the effort and show up. That's the most important thing." Now, with Wolff practically offering his seat to anybody who thinks that they can do a better job than him in Mercedes, it's safe to say that the team is in the worst position ever since the new era started, especially having a car with brand new design and philosophy, and one in which they invested a lot of hope. But with McLaren and Ferrari bound to bring upgrades to Imola, ones that they feel will revolutionize their cars and bring the fight closer to Red Bull, one couldn't help but wonder, is Mercedes out of the top 3? And even more frightening, did they enter the midfield in 2023? Although there are only 3 races under F1's belt and we still have 21 events to visit, the situation is loud and clear. There is no place for further mistakes. But the fact that Hamilton is leaving the team means that no one can actually count on him when it comes to helping with the repair process of the W15. The team has put their bet on Russell to be the next leader of the team, but after he was brake tested by Alonso and spun at the dangerous turn 6, it's evident that the young Brit raised some questions when it comes to whether or not he could bring the team back to its old glory days. On the other hand, you have Aston Martin, a team that's also convinced that they have a stable platform to work on and a platform on which they can further boost the performance of the AMR 24, and that provides an even greater challenge for Mercedes to overcome right now. If they do fall to P5 in the Constructors' Championship, rest assured that massive changes will come in 2025. But the most important one is that they'll be severely lacking the marketing potential they had before Hamilton's move to Ferrari. But I guess that's the latest performance of the W15 goes to show that the 7-time world champion knew something that we didn't before he made the move to Mercedes. And with this in mind, the only question that needs to be answered is whether or not the Silver Arrows have what it takes to sort out the issues on their car, whether it's on management or factory level. So with this in mind, what do you think about Mercedes' downfall? Let us know in the comments down below.